Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thom and Joe show. I'm Joe.
I'm Tom.
And now we are getting into the part of Evangelion December where we have to. I don't know. It's the middle of the series. It's hard.
DecembEvangelion. We're yes.
Yes. We are getting into the part where we know Tetsuya Takahashi definitely watched this show. And this is just the note I made. Tetsuya Takahashi, if you don't know, he is the director of Xenogears, Xenosaga, and Xenoblade. And
so one of those things is good.
Oh, come on. I will say I don't like Xenogears, but you should absolutely play it to make up your own mind, because in
all
my
three
mind,
of those things are good.
yeah. Xenosaga Episode 3 is definitely one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. And the Xenoblade games are definitely one of my favorite series of all time.
I am indeed really feeling it. I am really feeling it. Episode 12 through 15 of Evangelion, December the 20th, 1995 to February the... Oh, no, oh my god. January the 10th, 1996.
I'm sure the animators would have loved to have gone on a 1-month break.
Yeah, no, we're not getting that. Yeah, this is where the series sort of basically matches that Monster of the Week thing with a little bit more sort of what exactly is going on in the background. Joe, I've just realised we have forgotten to do something.
What's up?
We haven't talked about the ending yet, Joe. The ED.
Fly to the moon.
So yeah, Evangelion's ending, which we've taken 4 episodes to actually talk about, is "Fly Me to the Moon," which is okay. How about we talk about "Fly Me to the Moon"? It's one of the most famous songs ever written.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra, the big version.
Yep. The originally, so it's written in 1954 by Bart Howard, who is one of the really big, Tin Pan Alley sort of guys. Originally intended for cabarets. Frank Sinatra does this in 1964, which really accompanies the, the Apollo landings, all that NASA stuff. Which is where Quincy Jones rearranges the track, and it becomes that really famous thing, and everybody under the sun has covered this thing. This thing has been into space.
Yes.
This song has been into space, and just basically is one of the most. I mean, it's got a thing called the Songwriters Hall of Fame honoured it with being a towering song, which is like when the official people who go. The Songwriters Hall of Fame are going, this is an extremely important piece of music. You listen to them. I don't actually know how this got involved with Evangelion. There's not like any comments from Anno I've ever heard about. I think it was just the right piece of music at the right time.
And obviously this helped with the American audience because, I know this song, and they're singing it in English, even though, there are some little quirks for native Japanese speakers that going into English words, like most of them will say worship instead of worship, and that's just how it goes with the language differences.
Completely. So this is basically done by Yoko. Basically every major female character in this, I think with the exception of Ritsu, gets their own version of Fly Me to the Moon. I think everybody has covered this, and and it's sort of, this is the big thing that a lot of people prefer the ADV dub over the obviously the Netflix dub, because what Netflix did despite spending about $300 million on to keep Friends on their service, when no, that's too expensive to license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's replaced with a, kind of downturned piano melody.
I think it's Ray 1 or Ray 2. Again, it does differ from episode to episode. So the other thing with obviously Evangelion is every single episode has a different version of Fly Me to the Moon. It has 20, I think somewhere between, it's not every single episode, but a lot of there's about 7 or 8 versions. There's a Bossa Nova version. Most of the second soundtrack is basically variations on Fly Me to the Moon. It's great. It gives the series a lot of character. I will try and put it on the end of the episode and probably end up getting hit by copyright, but we'll see. As I said, it gives the series, this peculiar quality that sort of goes, we feel confident enough to end each episode with one of the most famous songs ever written. What of it?
So, I don't know how much more to add to it, except for the Bossa Nova version was the first thing that came to mind, because there's all of them that are more or less straight versions, except, Misato is drunk.
Of course, drunk karaoke. Joe, do you want to know a really fun thing?
What's up?
The Bossa Nova version does not originate with Evangelion. It dates in 1962.
Okay, so those are 1962 synth drum machines or sequencers or something that.
Well, actual Bossa Nova, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I said, it's been covered by everybody. It also rocks up in Bayonetta. It's got a strong space connotation. It's come on, it's Fly Me to the Moon.
Yeah. I played the Bayonetta version of Fly Me to the Moon as the first song after our wedding. The song that lets you know it's time to party. Yeah.
Which is why not? Once we've got that out of the way now, as I said, sorry, we sort of mislaid talking about this, and I suddenly realised 30 seconds into recording this episode we had not talked about the series' ending.
Well, we have to spread the conversation. We got 12 episodes?
We got 12 episodes, yeah. We got to talk about we haven't talked pretty much about the music of this thing, but I think would say these 4 episodes are interesting.
Yeah.
And it's sort of where
it's plot pieces. It's where you slide the things that don't fit elsewhere. The little character things, the little conspiracy theories, and who's really working for who, and I should say whom, but whatever. But underneath the Monsters of the Week is where the real work is being done in these episodes.
Yeah, totally. And this is where Evangelion basically start underneath, as I said, as you said, Joe, underneath this sort of Monster of the Week stuff. Slowly and surely, Hideaki Anno is sort of stealthily sliding what will basically become the second half of the series' main threads underneath. So in this episode, for example, we are introduced at long last, despite having heard about it, a good 7 or 8 episodes earlier, we are introduced to Second Impact.
Yes. And we are introduced to the Masato scene that Tetsuya Takahashi has used for at least 2 other of his games.
Yeah, it is a very good sequence.
It is a very good scene. It's where Masato is being put into a safety little, I don't want to say coffin, that's kind of what it looks like, but it's capsule, yes, where she gets the necklace from her mother, the cross necklace that she wears all the time, and her parents just close her away as second impact happens. And, she kind of witnesses her parents die while she's in there. I forget if there's a window. Maybe I'm just remembering the Tetsuya Takahashi stuff.
I think you're remembering the Takahashi, because I think it is just completely... And then she slides it back.
It's sealed off, and she's blinded, but she knows her parents die from that, because...
I mean, there's a cataclysmic sort of like... There is a giant glowing guy, where the Antarctic used to be. Mm-hmm. And this is where we get one of the really iconic shots of the thing, which is the wings of Adam unfurling. And it's like,
the nuclear-esque explosion. Like, there's not the, mushroom cloud, but there's the flash.
No. Yeah, it's like, this is like full-on cataclysm. And if there is something that Hideaki Anno loves doing, it is cataclysms. We get so much, like, we'll obviously when we get to End of Evangelion, we will talk about the absolute what the fuckness that is third impact. But, Hideaki Anno loves drawing destruction and stuff going boom in dramatic fashion, and this is no different. And it's sort of, I feel it's a very good bit of character work for Misato, because up to this point Misato has sort of like had an inner sadness to her, but we haven't really understood where it comes from, and there's like a drive to her which again sort of doesn't really have, and it's like, and then it goes this, and it goes, you and Shinji are very much the same.
Except, Shinji still has to deal with the parent in front of him, and the flaws, and the fact that his dad is not good. Yeah,
I mean, they're implicated. Like, there are implications that Misato's father wasn't great, but again, that's a lot of the things with as I said, it's a very well done, and the sequence is entirely done almost in sepia, and again, it's just so well done. It's I don't know whether the sepia was but we are sort of starting getting to get production. What are the production doing? Are they cutting deliberate corners? Are they is there a sensibility to this where it there is this is the part of the series where you're going, has this been done? And it's something that sort of really colours the middle section of Evangelion. Is this being done for stylistic purposes, or are they running out of time and money again? It's a great sequence. It finally brings us face to face with, oh god, this is what Third Impact was, and Gendo is later in the Antarctic, and oh god, the South Pole is gone. It's very much cataclysmic. And Misato gets a promotion.
Yes, Major Misato.
Major Misato.
And it sort of paints out like the difference between her and Ritsuko, because the main angel of this is coming from orbit and is like, dropping shit on them. And if it drops it in, the angel itself is a bomb, and if it gets through, it's going to destroy all of Nerve and game over. So that I can't remember how many zeros are in this, but there's like a... Yeah, Misato is going with a plan that has a 0.0001, or there may be add an extra 1 or 0% success rate. Yeah. And obviously Ritsuko is like, you're insane, but this is the plan. This is the plan we have, one plan we have that is not 0.
And that I feel is Misato as a character. Is like the Ritsuko as a character we'll come to later, because there is like a sense to her, whereas actually we'll come to a talk about it in the very next episode of the series, but she is very analytical, she's very scientific. There is almost a detached sense to her, at least with some of the angels, where it's like, this is insane, why would you ever do this? And Misato is almost the flip side of this. Is Misato will go, if there is a chance that this will work, we're doing it. because because it's better to have like half a plan. And and it's a great this thing. This is why I like Misato so much as a character. Misato doesn't have the answers to a lot of the things. She is a 30-something who is in this is the thing where I said last episode. It's like everyone ends up as Misato. But Misato has more of an idea what's going on than Shinji does, and and in certain degrees more planned than what Asuka has, But we also see the side to Misato where she is very much, there is a sadness to Misato. There is something missing from Misato's life. It's something that I wish Anno occasionally went into more. There is a kindred sensibility to Shinji and Misato. They are both basically, they have their reasons for fighting the angels. They, they are dealing with loss and, Misato's case, frankly, revenge.
Yeah,
it's like
there is a part that doesn't get into it fully, that she wants to murder the hell out of the angels because they killed her parents.
Yeah, it's like, justifiably.
Justifiably, but they don't make her crazy about it. I mean, she does do these plans that are 0.00001% chance of succeeding, but they do succeed. There's not this point where she gets pushed too far where she doesn't succeed. I mean, obviously we're going to get into End of Evangelion when we get there, and that's that's a whole other bag of worms. But as far as this series is concerned, it doesn't. I mean, she obviously has issues, but they don't come to the surface in a way that harms the narrative or like harms the missions as much as you would think it does.
No. And this is also sort of, I guess, where Misato sort of goes to Shinji. There is a sense of, Misato realizes that Shinji is not happy. I mean, she I wouldn't say she's put she's been blind to it before, but it's like, there is, as I said, this sense where Misato sort of realizes, Shinji is, not happy, and, she goes, oh, well, and there's a sense of, a kindred sensibility in, why do we do this? Why are we fighting these things? And it's really well done. So there's a few background, and obviously this goes again into Shinji's psychology. Why are you risking your life on like 0.0001% plans? Where you're basically told, well, we think you should make a will because you're going to die. It's like, this is like this almost this mad sensibility to it, and it is where the sort of like some of the characters' sort of connections sort of go. This is almost like Evangelion going, this is a good point we've got to with Shinji and Gendo praises Shinji, and it's like, this is it doesn't last, but it feels like there's this point of catharsis to this episode where it's like Asuka and Shinji and Rei work together to basically stop this thing. It's complete teamwork. If the fight the previous episode is very much Shinji Asuka risking her neck to protect, against this. Then this is obviously like the three of them working in tandem. Yeah, this is a good episode. There's a few interesting little, again, factoids about this episode. So this is where obviously Rei is revealed to be vegetarian, which Hideaki Anno is also his. This is one of the very few times we get an angel that doesn't appear in the series. So we get Turel, who I'm gonna pop a picture of Turel up because Turel is a really cool design. We never see Turel in the series. Turel has never reappeared in any works. It's basically this noodly thing. It's this string thing that I think reappears to a degree in Armor Cell, which is much later in the series. But it's this is one of the few times where they literally drop a really nice angel design and never bother picking it up again. Yeah, this is the only thing I'll say against this episode is the battle against Sakuya, which is this big thing with eyes. Which, again, you get this really cool sequence where it's in space and then it's like, Jesus Christ, look at the size of this thing. This sort of thing that's hundreds of miles across. And, ridiculous. Basically, if it drops onto Nerve HQ, it will, cause crater. You get these sort of crater lakes that have been formed by bits dropping off it. And it goes, and it gets defeated in, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's it could have just stayed up there in orbit, and then you'd have to go. This is the closest Evangelion gets to a fight in space, at least in the actual series. We get a fight in water. We get a fight in we're gonna fight in a computer next episode.
Yes.
Would you like to see that?
Sure. I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, anything else? I mean, this episode is fun. There's again, this is where Evangelion sort of goes, right, we've had our 4 episodes of fun fan servicey, hijinks. Right, now it's back to business. And but we'll end it on a good point because Shinji gets prized by Gendo, and Gendo is transporting this mysterious thing back from the Antarctic. Yeah, we'll get to. Yeah, I wonder what that could be.
Yes.
Yes. Good episode. Again, this is where, as I said, it's just there are, and this is the thing. It sort of gets to this point where it's sort of it could have, again, if it wasn't, obviously Hideaki Anno in charge, this would have gone in a completely different direction. Another cool fact, this influenced the monster design in Nope, which is a very good film.
Okay.
yeah, it did. But no, it's it gets this is about as positive as Evangelion the series gets. It's here, you've defeated this. Well done, Shinji. You now get a praise from your father. Well done.
Mm-hmm. You get one praise.
One praise. Yeah, good episode, and it sort of really starts getting the ball rolling on sort of other stuff because now Gendo is up to his own plan, and there's other stuff going on in the background, and hey, we get some more smattering of Christian symbolism because Gendo and Futsugi are discussing original sin and pillars of soul, and it's very much like Anno going, and now some biblical imagery over here.
And then there's Golgotha stated throughout the series.
Yeah. It's yeah, as I said, this is one of my favorite episodes in the entire series because it just does it does a lot of stuff I like that Evangelion does, and it again, it's sort of it goes, this is really the last true monster of the week episode I think we get. and then it sort of goes back into the other stuff, and then it starts to go introverted, and and this is where we start going into Hideaki Anno's mental breakdown. But first, a Ritsu centric episode.
Yes, because she's been around, but we haven't really gotten into her stuff yet. Like, what her deal is.
Yeah. So yeah, Ritsu is. I like Ritsu a lot as a character, and it's like Ritsu's not my typical type of character that that I tend to like, but there is such an interesting sense to her, and she is basically this is so. Fun fact: as I was going through the Evangelion sort of kill list, Ritsu is the only character in Evangelion who is not an Evangelion pirate to kill an angel. Which I don't know. Yeah. she gets one.
Yes, because they can't fight this one because it's hacking the mainframe.
It's in the mainframe. This is sort of like this episode was partly animated by Production IG. This is basically about as hard science fiction as Evangelion gets. I guess I think is fair. So you've got polysomes, the Pribnow box, which is something that appears in bacteria. That appears in bacterial promoter site, which I'm sure somebody will tell us. Central dogma, which is obviously DNA makes RNA, RNA makes DNA. Remember everyone from biology that and other stuff. This is where certainly Anno sort of starts throwing in the tech speak a lot. It's sort of like but it works because, and particularly it works in the dub where it's like there is a believability with it. So yeah, Asuka, Rei, and Shinji are doing some experiments, and inside the pseudo Evangelions, we get this anaerobic bacteria angel called Uriel, who is basically a virus.
Yes, a computer virus.
A computer virus. I am invincible.
And this is then it kind of becomes the beginning of Xenogears.
Yeah.
Again, Tetsuya Takahashi watched this series.
He really did. So yeah, this is a really interesting episode because it is very much. This is like this is where Anno starts to go into the introverted stuff. And so this is basically, this episode was going to be called What Comes After Fear, and Shinji was going to get trapped inside an angel, which basically would be 3 episodes, and this ends up later in episode 60, which we'll get into. Anno sort of starts fixating about this singular phrase. The end point of evolution is death. And this single phrase that Anno sort of puts the series in it. This is where Anno goes, fuck your happy ending. Anno starts to go, you're not getting a happy ending. These people are too fucked up to get a happy ending. This is where Evangelion starts to pivot, almost little by little, into its second half. And what he does is, rather than this high octane, sensibility, rather than what he has this desperate struggle to, get Shinji to get out of this angel, Anno goes, no. We're going to have 22 minutes of introspection and dramatic computer stuff. And it's also here that Anno starts to go into, his other sort of the other thing that will really color what he does for the rest of the series, which is fuck otaku.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where like single-handedly, we see it really in these next 3 episodes. This is where Anno starts to dismantle, his sort of his sense of producing stuff for the time. Like, this is the thing, like the last 5 episodes are basically being light-hearted, kind of fan servicey, kind of like, really fun tone. Oh, isn't this cool to be a mecha pilot? And Anna goes, nope. No more of that. Kind of really cool stuff like going on. So, really interesting thing. Production IG could have made all of Evangelion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't doubt it.
And the president was willing to do so. And Joe, would you like to have a guess who refused it and therefore put the kibosh on the entire thing?
Anno?
No. Another industry vet. It's our old pal Mamoru Oshii.
Well,
Oshii basically said, no, we're not doing this. We haven't got the money. Go away, Anno, you annoying thing. So Production IG basically did Lilliputian, Hitcher, and a couple of other episodes, which we'll come to later. This episode is particularly notable. I mean, you got to remember, this episode is coming out like months after Ghost in the Shell, which really does, match up, anime with, the very, very nascent computer graphics. So a lot of the stuff that done on this is done essentially on Macintosh. Like really, this is like cutting edge animation stuff, and a lot of the computer readouts are done, on basically Macintoshes and then animated over or retouched. And the bridge is physically made. They have to physically make the bridge to like all this computer stuff to make sense. And there's a lot of really really cool stuff like visually this episode does. And what it marries it to is basically, I guess, like this dive into Ritsu as a character. And her connection to her mother, and this sort of sense of so Naoko Ikagi is a character we don't see for a lot of the series. She casts a shadow over a lot of the series. She is absolutely instrumental in the Meiji, which are the supercomputers, which basically a lot of nerve sort of thought process is basically done with this. And it basically, Anno starts to go into this sort of sense, this really for lack of a better word, a techno thriller. There's some people have compared this quite and I can see immediately where this has come from, the works of William Gibson, particularly Neuromance. I mean, Ritsu is, from certain perspectives, Ritsu is basically a riff off a character from the original Neuromancer. But no, it basically
and
goes...
she's trancing.
Of course, and she's trancing because, of course, we cannot... But no, yeah, this is the thing. Like, we basically get this sort of, this very taut techno thriller, because basically this thing is slowly taking over Nerve HQ. You can't battle this thing in the traditional way. It's not like a 300-foot tall beastie. It's a computer virus. It's like, and basically it starts to evolve into essentially a computer. And it's like, and you can see Anno going, what is the line between, technology and, where does evolution end and creation begin? Are we and essentially we get into this sort of thing where it's slowly taking over the Meiji, which Ritsuo has to basically like axle grind open to sort of actually get into their artificial and genuinely quite creepy brains. I mean, it's like you sort of going, this is where Evangelion sort of body horror starts to rear its head again.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like the animation from this, which is done largely by Kazuhira Kisei, who is a key animator on this, is doing these really shadowy, nuanced, sort of almost noirish sort of shots in this. And, obviously, it's beautifully done. And, for an episode which barely, features the main trio and is basically Ritsuo exploring her mother issues, which is like, I feel is very much. I feel it's very much, she essentially, this episode is essentially her dealing with her relationship with her mother, who she at once respects and hates, and whilst battling this computer virus against the clock, because it's also going to blow up Nerve HQ because it's set self-destruct on. But then it kind of comes into this already quite existential thing of going, we're going to basically evolve this thing into a corner, and basically by continuing to evolve, by continuing to coexist, with this, is going to kill itself. It's for a series that otherwise is very much straightforward with its like battles against obviously evil things that are emanating from space and volcanoes, is unsettling, I think.
Yeah. But at the same time, it is very much Evangelion, because this is very Freudian and Jungian, because what we get is that these computers were made with the memories of Ritsuko's mother, and that's what's in the artificial brains, is all of that.
Various aspects of her, indeed.
Various aspects of her. And then she digs into the mainframe, and that's where she hangs out and she's typing, and there's all these notes and stuff. And Ritsuko is going back to her mother's womb, is what is implied by the going into the mainframe where all the notes are. And there's also this very interesting thing about evolution, I'm kind of commentary, kind of not, where the mainframe is full of post-it notes. How to do this, what you do with this, and all of this in the mainframe. And it's kind of a thing on evolution, like all of our evolution is just the post-it notes we got from previous generations, and to how to work this thing. And we don't know entirely, and we have to find our own ideas to move forward, but there are these little things along the way that can help us from previous people.
Yeah, totally. It's like, but it's an image that Anno returns to again and again throughout Evangelion, is this sort of the concept of returning to the womb. I mean, it's something that the series does, has already done and will continue to do, and will do some really weird and disturbing stuff with later in the series. This sort of, but there's also like, again, the Christian imagery sort of gets shoved in the side. It's like Anna going, but do you know what these three wise men are? They're women. Look, boom.
Man.
Yeah.
The match I had boobs.
Boobs. Yeah, and it's like, it's very cleverly done, and it's and it's sort of very much, I think it's about as hard science fiction as Evangelion ever gets. It's it's very much, it's very, it is a hard science fiction thing. I mean, the main writer of this is Mitsuo Iso, who he's basically did a lot of the writing for Gundam. We'll come back to Iso later because he animates my single favorite anime sequence of any anime ever made. Later in the series, yeah. He's a gloriously, really talented animator. Real talent, and he is obviously one of the key writers on this episode and did a lot of the scientific sort of stuff for this episode. I feel it's like where Evangelion starts to get a little bit more of its handle on its techno blabble and starts to go, yeah, but this stuff actually means something. We can't just throw techno blabble at the screen and go, oh well, this is some really cool techno blabble. Anno starts to go, okay, but what are we actually talking about here? Which is something which starts to come more and more into the series as we go along. Again, but really.
There is still the aspect of it. Oh, they're hacking the mainframe. They got past the kernel and blah blah blah, or whatever else you take from hackers. Oh, yeah. It's still that, and it still kind of gets held back. That it's just like they're hacking this thing, and we don't know, and it has to go through computers, and there is the meaning there, but it's also it's not. It's an active episode because of what it's doing to develop Ritsuko, but as like what's on screen and what's happening, it's not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is really where the series starts to sort of turn on its viewership. And this starts to colour really the next two episodes. Weaving a Story is it's half a clip show and half a really, really good character study.
And say like the seat of the soul.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Sile, do you wanna see what we've been up to? Yeah. So this is where, this is where if Anno wasn't aware of his mental health problems, he very much when he's making this episode, Weaving a Story, he very much becomes aware of it. So the first half of this episode is basically a clip show. It is essentially, here is everything we've done so far in the series, mostly viewed as a report to Sile from Gendo. It's inessential. It's I feel it's like this is the series catching its breath. It's like this is halfway through the series. You're gonna have to do this at some point to basically bring new viewers up to date. And you start getting the very visually heavy sort of things, and it's you start getting Evangelion's real lean on it's text iconography. I think it's fair to say.
And Anno's love of putting text in everything.
Oh god, yeah. The man will just throw text. The man goes, "We'll just put text on the screen." But the other half of this episode, so this is another episode. Eventually, this essentially got binned. So in this episode, Shinji was going to learn. This is the original, the trio of episodes where Anno goes, actually, no, that's going out the window. So Shinji would learn True Fear and Despair, and it's sort of we keep a grain of that because it's really, this is the first real deep dive we get into Rei as a character, and what is inside is not happy. Like Rei, so this is where Anno starts to go, I have a mental health problem. So Anno basically, I think we mentioned this previous when we were talking about Rei. So Anno goes, in this episode, I realise I haven't really given Rei so much of a character. So Anno goes, I'm going to put so essentially the first half of the second part, the first bit of the second half of this episode, once we got out of the clip show, so to speak, is basically Ray delivering this monologue, which is where I particularly think Ray's voice actress is really good in all three versions of this. It's very well put together. It's and Anno starts writing this thing, and he goes, okay, I guess we can think of Ray as schizophrenic. And Ray goes, and Anno goes, no, this isn't working. So Anno's lent a book, a volume from a book called, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Besato Takarajima, which essentially is a series of magazine-like books. And Anno comes across this poem written by someone who's mentally ill. And Anno writes the monologue. And if Anno is starting to dislike, the Artaku thing, if Anno is starting to think of Evangelion as other than an extroverted action series with occasional deep dives into his character, this is where it wholesale goes, no, we are literally psychoanalyzing our characters. We're going to try and look into the human mind. But it is in doing this that Anno starts to go, I'm mentally ill. It is like it is very much this moment where Anno starts to go, Shinji is a coping mechanism for me. I don't know what I want to feel about this. Again, Anno's mental health history is cloudy. We know he's obviously, I said, I'm not we should point out we are not therapists, we are not we are not experts on psychoanalysis, we are not, neither of us is medically trained to talk about this. But certainly,
I was almost a psychologist minor, but I had to take classes that actually you had to do experiments to pass. Yeah. So I couldn't do that to justify getting a minor. So it's just journalism and English for me.
Yeah, fine. Is that? But it basically, this is, and again, it's sort of different. The timeline and Anno. The other thing is Anno hasn't really, Japan unfortunately still has an extreme stigma to mental health problems, and it's. I don't think Anno will ever exactly explain, talk about it, and I don't think it's fair to go to him. Okay, but when did you sort of, But I think we can start to ascertain that Anno is definitely realizing from Ray's monologue, this is something I now need to write about and into. This series needs to change because and again, is it Anno feeling he can't write it? Is Anno feeling this is a more interesting angle? Is this Anno trying to work something out? We don't know. We'll probably never know. But this is the point at which the series turns inward, almost overnight.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we've talked about the Jungian as the id, super id, and ego. Yeah. But there is Shinji as Anno's outer struggles, and then there's definitely Rei as the inner struggles. Oh, God, absolutely. I don't know if you would say Asuka is his professional stuff.
I'd say to an extent, yeah. I don't know. I feel Anno has never quite used Asuka as a sister, at least in the films. At least up until the films, I don't think Anno has particularly, regarded Asuka as part of that, self-help sort of, I am writing about this, writing these characters is cathartic. I think that does change in the rebuilds, but we'll get to that obviously when we get to that.
Because I get the feeling he doesn't use Asuka for that. I mean, you can reach and maybe say it's about either his professional or his outward struggles, because you don't get to be a director of anime without being able to push forward.
Oh God, no!
I mean, obviously he has had problems. He has had controversy. He's had mental breakdowns, but he's still been a director that essentially completes series.
Yeah.
Except
I'll get
maybe
on to,
maybe his and her circumstances.
Yeah, but that was that was outside.
That was outside. That was outside interference.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting episode. So obviously the clip show is great. It's like, hey, if you haven't been, if you wonder what the fuck's going on in this series, hi, we there's lots of Japanese robots doing stuff. This is sort of like, so we get this really, and I mean this is actually really unsettling. Like, Ray is like, again, I hesitate to make a diagnosis for Ray because, as aforementioned, not therapist.
I need to go get the issue of Anime Insider. One of my coworkers did on getting a therapist to talk to the characters of Evangelion.
Yeah, but no, as I said, the whole thing with Ray is almost an absence of self, and that's it's really in this episode it's particularly unsettling. It's like you get this beautiful and actually quite sad monologue from her. It's this almost this sense of, who am I? Who is Ray Ayanami? Who is this person who I am? And it's like it strikes me as this is somebody with deep mental health. I mean, I question whether it's Anno writing through Ray, because I don't know. I feel it's okay. We if you could, well, technically, authorial 10, everything Anno is writing is intended to be him.
It goes back to the base of writing. All of the characters are you wearing a mask.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
One of the basic theories of writing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you go and but it's actually quite harrowing how little there is, how little sense of self Ray has. It's, and this is the thing, like I start to understand, why Ray kickstarted the whole Moe thing, because it's like, do you feel sorry for Ray? You can't help but feel sorry for Ray. You want to go, everything's gonna be okay, small blue-haired girl. It's gonna be all right. It's, there are things to look forward to, and you will eventually work out who you are. And it's like, but no, this is the thing. Like, Ray is an enigma. Ray is, we've spent at this point, essentially 11 episodes, 10 and a half, 11 episodes of Ray. We've got no idea who she is.
And we've gotten pretty much nowhere with her as a character. She kind of exists. She makes like little improvements, but are they improvements, or is she just going along with whatever?
Yeah, but accompanying this monologue is sort of what Anno starts to do a lot more in the, again, we get into is this the same budget, is this for artistic reasons? We're going to get this time and time again, really, now through the second half of the series. It's inevitable. We'll get into, when the budget really starts to run out later in the series, and what caused that next episode. But it starts, you get Anno starting to do really experimental sort of stream of conscious imagery with this, which is something he'll return to in astonishing force in the finale of End of Evangelion, where he does essentially like he makes this essentially the middle. We'll speak to him about End of Evangelion, what even basically the fact that End of Evangelion is an experimental film masquerading as the finale to an extremely controversial anime film later. But it's experimental. It's like Anno going, this essentially is, the big question which Evangelion asks again and again and again through its second half is, who are you? Who am I? Who are we? How do we connect to each other? Who is Shinji Ikari? How does Shinji Ikari relate to Rei Aonami? How does Rei Aonami relate to Asuka and Asuka Langley? Sorry, and so on and so on. It basically goes. This is Anno single-handedly going, these are the building blocks on which the second half of the series will sit. And then Anno does really creepy stuff. So basically, there's like they do some tests with obviously the various pilots trying to pilot each other's Evangelions, and Shinji attempts to pilot Unit 0 and it goes berserk, and we get the single creepiest image of the entire series, which is this horrifying thing. You get this sort of like, so Evangelion is very tight-lipped on what, so we'll get into sort of like one of the key things, but there's something in Evangelion which, it starts to peel back, and you go, there's this thing which is other trainer thing, you're going, but what are the Evangelions? Which sort of starts to, and you get the first hint of this with this really creepy, imagery of this sort of distended sort of looking Rei face just flying towards the camera. It's like, Jesus Christ. That's really genuinely like one of the first times that the series genuinely goes, yeah, this is no longer the fun monster of the week, so buckle up.
Yeah.
So essentially Unit 0 tries to attack Rei. What's inside Unit 1? Don't know. Gonna be revealed later. Ritsuo thinks that Unit 0 is trying to attack her. And we end episode 14 with Rei bringing the Spear of Longinus into the picture. Yeah.
Got that away from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
It belongs in a museum.
Oh, it's a fake. Let's go after Archimedes' dial instead.
That also belongs in a museum. So this is where the series starts to really get the sort of like a lot of its key pieces moving. So this is Anno going, and we follow this up with episode 15. Those women longed for the touch of others' lips and thus invited their kisses, which I'm sure is a reference to something. A lot of these titles, by the way,
Lies in Silence.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, because this episode starts to really do this. Is that if episode 14 starts to peel back, what's going on, and some of the other things, this tears it all the way back.
Yeah. And I should also note, as like a music person who notes like when things are used, we have Shinji playing From the New World on the cello. And the Japanese love themselves some From the New World, and as does the Master and Commander of Far Side of the World, which I faked that we were going to turn the show into a focus on, but just a note from the music person,
Joe.
Yes.
It's Bach's Prelude.
What?
It's Bach's Prelude.
Okay, never mind. Like,
but which will reoccur later in the series again.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, it sort of does this brilliant thing with Shinji, which is like, Shinji can do stuff. Shinji is not just, Shinji is not just defined by by Evangelion, and it's sort of like it's an interesting one because you then get like a couple of really good. So this episode essentially starts with Kaji making investigations into what Nerve are up to, and this culminates right at the end of the episode with probably the most shocking reveal of the entire series so far. Yeah, there's something in the basement.
Yes.
Hmm.
What could be in the basement?
What could be in the
Could it
basement,
be? Yes. Could it be
Yes.
the first angel?
It could be. It could be. It might be. We don't know yet. Yeah. So we get this brilliant reveal of there is something giant and frightening and really quite creepy in the basement, and this is what Nerve have had under their and this is why all the angels are like zeroing in on Terminal Dogma like like ants to a picnic. And sort of trying to destroy Tokyo 3. You've had something down there the whole time, and what it is will be revealed later. But this is the thing, like Evangelion does this brilliant thing of basically I guess like dealing a few cards of plot out at a time. It's like, well, what's this? Who's this? What's this going on over here? It does this brilliant thing with pacing. It does if you even if you watched this episode, like you watched episode 14 and went, okay, I kind of have a vague idea of what this series, the episode 15 goes, now you have to watch episode 16. You've got to wait till next week. Yeah, so it does that very well. Kaji's Kaji's been snooping around at this point for like 2 or 3 episodes, like in the background, and it's like, and they get a very, very good combination of that. Kaji and Misato end up going to a wedding, and Misato gets white girl wasted, despite being Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing, and Misato's relationship with Kaji starts to get rekindled, and she eventually unmasks him as the double agent, and it's like, hey, what are you doing? And I feel like this is
there's this very specific part of Kaji that he is working on one level, and he is always working on another level. And there is never this feeling that he is working on 100% the surface level you believe him on. And that's kind of what gives his character the push and, what gets him the reputation as a scoundrel, because he is a spy, a liar, and a cheat.
Yes. But we love him anyway, mostly.
Yes. And Misato definitely loves him.
Yeah. And this is the thing, you get this sort of glimpse into like their shared history with each other, which is like, there's like, the idea, this is something the Evangelion does very well with this sort of generation of, second impact of going, these people are very screwed up, but, life goes on. People get married, people have kids, despite everything, despite the fact that basically you've got extraterrestrials that are very keen to end the world, rocking up every 5 minutes.
And if I may put in a little note, it has that wall between adulthood and like childhood or adolescence, and I think some of the characters are definitely still stuck in it as adults, but like there is definitely this different feeling when you go from the teenagers who are just trying to get a handle on the world and absorb all of it, to these adults who are all concerned, whose world is shrank to their own thing, where they're getting married and they have their own little world and aren't really concerned. And then in between we have like Kaji and Misato and Ritsuko, who are trying to save the world every goddamn day, and yet have to exist in this world where surrounded by people whose, problems or their focuses are so small, like getting married and, having kids. And so there is this definite separation, and I don't know if it says anything. I don't know. It's just an observation I'm making. I mean,
No. Yeah, completely. I mean, Evangelion is essentially, as this, another of its key strings is a really, maturity, and there are, it is a series, as we mentioned, as we seem to mention every episode, it is a series full of fucked up people trying to live, and a lot of them are, emotionally stunted, or frankly, in certain cases they are stuck as perpetual nearly adults. We'll certainly get into this when we get into the movies, where it really does sort of hammer home on that particular train of thought. But it's but no, this is the relationship between Misato and Kaji is it's flawed, but they got each other. This is the thing. It's very much a, no relationship in Evangelion is particularly healthy, but this is certainly about as healthy as they get.
There is certainly like genuine love in there that is only separated by what they have to. Masato's duty and Kaji's duty are two very different things, and they're actually opposing things, if in some ways. And there's just this way it cannot exist, but it has to exist. And there needs to be this emotion there, because that's kind of the only emotion Masato has to hold on to. Because everything else she's unsure of. She's unsure of whether even when she's a major who takes 0.001% chance, there has to be something that she holds on to, and to a certain extent, that's Kaji.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it does it in this episode, because we also have, Shinji and Asuka's sort of relationship.
Yeah, where Shinji is kind of developing his crush, but Asuka is doing the thing where she is very not interested, and I don't know if it's just the confidence thing, but she knows she can do better, and she definitely has a crush on Kaji, so, there is this interest between them, and there is also this wall that is going to kind of permeate the relationship.
Completely agree. Yeah, they are, as I said, they are. If Misato and Kaji are screwed up people trying to, find happiness with each other, there's this sense with Asuka and Shinji of, these two people are deeply fucked up and really should not be in a relationship with each other at this point. They are, in Shinji's case, horribly emotionally stunted. In Asuka's case, slightly sinisterly precocious, and particularly when obviously you got her flirting with Kaji in this episode. The last episode, it's like, this in episode 13 is like, yikes. You are trying to act way too old, and she goes on a date, and it's like, she gets blown off in the date, and it's like, it's very much, Asuka is trying to be far more grown up than she actually is, and it's sort of, again, it's this drive of wanting to be the best, of being old, wise beyond her years, that starts to fall apart.
Yeah, it starts to fall apart, and she wants to be accepted by the adults because that means she is doing a good job, and that is her way of being accepted.
Completely, yeah. And it's that, it's one of those episodes that really, really does sort of like cement a couple of aspects of Evangelion, and the two teenagers trying to kiss and they don't really know what they're meant to be doing, and it's like and it's like there's a sense of Shinji going, Asuka going, I want to kiss you because I'm bored, and there's no. And it's like, what degree does Asuka actually have affection for Shinji? Is this just, something to pass the time because she's, because obviously, her only purpose really is to pilot the Evangelion.
And also in this episode, we get a very atypical scene between Shinji and his father.
Yeah.
Because they go to Shinji's mother's grave, and which is just a little pole because there were no bodies left. So they just have this grave site to have one. And they actually have a peaceful, thoughtful talk with each other. And, they're obviously doing the sake for Gendo's wife and Shinji's mom. But, there's a part of them that do get along, and this is the, connecting tissue with it.
Yeah, as I said, there's a sense to both of them where I think it's like, the only thing we have in common is Yui. This is the first time we actually get Yui's name in series, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the encyclopedia. I'm just the person watching it.
I hesitate to say we get it before. I think we know that Shinji has a mother and her mother, and that's about as far as we've got. Yeah. So, yeah, this is again a really good quartet of episodes. This is where the series starts to flex its creative and certainly its narrative muscle, and this is also where unfortunately the series sort of bids a fond farewell to nice happy monster of the week stuff, because we're about to enter some of the nastiest episodes of the series.
It's very weird. I mean, I kind of let you lead the talk anyway, because you're the person who this is your all-time favorite series and you know everything about it. But also, I don't remember the most out of these episodes, and it wasn't just because I had to watch these 4 episodes in an auto shop while my car was getting 9 hours worth of work done to it. But it's also, these are important episodes, but they don't enter the iconography of what we remember from the series later. Obviously, these are important because they are the bottom blocks that build up to everything else. But it's also, I don't remember a lot of it. And part of episode 14 is that it's a half recap, so your mind kind of shuts off when in the middle of the recap, because it's just like, I don't need to pay full attention to it. And then it's like, no, you absolutely do need to pay attention to this. And your mind gets caught in a rundown. But these are building blocks for what happens later. These are little teases to just what this show's really about.
Yeah, I think these 8 episodes certainly are they work best together as a cohesive whole. I mean, you can pull particular episodes out of this and go, this episode is particularly good, this episode is particularly good. But as a unit, I think is where they work best. So yeah, next time we will be getting into what really gained the series its infamy and some other stuff.
And it's sudden drop in budget and
Hideaki Anno's worsening mental state, and one of the goriest scenes ever shown on primetime Japanese television. We will see you next time.
Bye bye.